So, welcome to the AMA session with Global Cannabis Holding. As you know, the Global Cannabis Holding has started an STO security token offering on STOKR. The public round started a few days back, and today I have with me Chairman of Global Cannabis Holding entity, David Luftglass. David, welcome to the AMA session.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you also here. So, David and me will talk about the Global Cannabis Holdings vision, their security token offering, what they're planning to do or planning to achieve in the next few years, and also learning about the cannabis industry and how it is developing in the current macro environment. So, without further wasting time, let's jump on the topic and the discussion. So, David, I think before we go into the discussion about the Global Cannabis Holding in specific sense, would you like to give a quick introduction about yourself to the audience?
Yeah, happy to. So my name is David Luftglass. I'm the chairman of Global Cannabis Holdings, just like Arnab said. So I've been in cannabis for about 10 years now. I started out in Washington, D.C., basically started by developing a number of brands. It all began with my mom's peanut butter truffle recipe. I basically took her recipe, infused it with THC, and then brought that to the retailers in D.C. I asked them if that was something they thought they could put on the shelf. They said, yeah, but you need a full menu to be worth our time. So I went back with my team and built out 70 different product lines under 7 brands, and then became the top wholesaler in Washington, D.C. From there, we took our best brands out to California, which is where I was lucky enough to meet Adam Grossman, who was one of the original advisors for Global Cannabis Holdings. So he introduced me to the team, and we've been like family ever since.
So, how many years back so this happened?
This was about a year and a half ago now. So I'm still the newest managing partner, newest member of the team. Very grateful to be working with the rest of the team. They started this back in 2019. Basically started with a team of lawyers that were setting up a number of different companies. They were the top ones when it came to getting licenses in Uruguay. And they said, why are we taking, $10,000-$15,000 for each of these companies when we can come in as partners with them and get 10 to 15% of these companies and build out a portfolio of strategic companies? So that was kind of where GCH was born.
So now I understand GCH has already been in the market for quite some years. So when did you guys start and where are you standing as of 2023?
Yeah. So it really started back in 2018, 2019 with that team of lawyers earning in Uruguay, starting with Sweat Equity. So they built out about 10 different portfolio companies back then. And then since then, we built out ownership in 38 different portfolio companies across 6 countries. So basically kind of what we're focused on now is diversification, bringing in a bunch of different companies that support the original companies that we started with in Uruguay to build in a cohesive global ecosystem that can really scale. A lot of the problems that cannabis companies have is they're very disconnected. There's so many different verticals across the cannabis industry, so it's hard to pick one that's going to be successful. So we started with these bases that were mostly cultivations in Uruguay. Uruguay was the first country in the world to actually legalize cannabis federally. So we focused very much on the compliance and legal side of the industry. So that was really where it was born. And now we're focused on working with distribution channels in places like Brazil and Portugal, bringing in brands from the United States, and then partnering with other groups in Ecuador, Colombia, and beyond.
Yeah, it's actually also very fascinating for me because you guys started the journey from Uruguay, but they also looked into different LATAM markets. Coming to that point a little bit later, but maybe can you also explain, because I think it's a very interesting industry, right? The cannabis, how it developed. So you mentioned a very interesting element that GCH is investing in various verticals of the entire supply chain. So how do you define this kind of verticals, and what are the key verticals and where you guys are investing in at the moment?
Yeah. We started with cultivation and production of final products, which is what most of the groups were kicking off in Uruguay. And then we expanded into more groups that were focused on R&D, doing everything from hemp plastics to pharmaceuticals. And then distribution channels is really the main focus right now. We want people that are doing unique things in the industry to add value to the rest of our base portfolio. And then distribution channels so that all of these products have strong places to go and we can secure that supply chain long term. The main places we're looking right now are places like Portugal, Germany, Australia, Israel, Brazil, and places like that. One of our portfolio companies is called Pukmed. So they're a really good example of kind of, what we're really looking for and driving for right now. So they're a public company inside of Brazil. They were the first company to import THC products from Uruguay to Brazil. And then since then have built out distribution to over 600 pharmacies across the country. So really well-run company run by some amazing folks that our team has been friends with for over a decade. So there's a really strong base there. And they're doing really great things across Brazil and breaking into other markets. So that's kind of an example of a company that we'd be looking for. But Brazil is pretty well covered, so more focused on Portugal, Australia, and some of these other countries that are now starting to open up. One of the really fun things with cannabis is it's now just becoming legal across all of these different countries in the world. So it's really a blue ocean industry. As these markets open up, it's all about being first, coming in strong with good SOPs, compliance, safety, and consistency that is really scalable and people can trust. So that's our focus, is building that trusted ecosystem of partners that we know are going to work well together and are going to scale up as the world opens up to cannabis.
Yes, like I'm currently based in Berlin, and there is a lot of discussion in Germany actually about both the medical marijuana and the cannabis industry, plus also the, I would say, recreational use of the cannabis, right? And you're coming from the Uruguayan market, so how the regulatory regime, or in the Uruguay specifically, as well as in Latin American market, how the market legally looks like for the medical cannabis industry as well as for the recreational cannabis industry?
Yeah, good question. So Uruguay was the first country to go legal. So they now have full production. You can buy cannabis in the pharmacies across Uruguay. Brazil, it basically works through two different systems. One is the direct-to-consumer program through the pharmacies. So basically, doctors can prescribe products within Brazil, and then it's sent to them from distribution hubs in places like Uruguay or Miami for CBD products. The other way is through the government. So the Brazilian government has a budget that they set aside for medical cannabis every year. They use that to purchase bulk products, and then they distribute that through the health hospitals and the health insurance programs down to the medical patients. So that's kind of one of the more complicated programs. In somewhere like Chile, you could buy it from the Dispensario Nacional, which is the national dispensary for the country. So basically, it's just like ordering a product. You get a medical prescription, and then you can order it, and it gets sent straight to you. But it all depends. A lot of what we do is business to business. So we're supplying the raw materials that are going to be then turned into finished products in distribution centers in places like Chile or Portugal. So yeah, I would like to hit every side of the industry. So each country is really its own adventure. They all have their own laws and regulations. We really have to custom fit what we're doing to each country. Uruguay only has 3 million people, so it's an incredible place to get started and to build. But every country that starts in Uruguay has a vision of going global.
No, it's fascinating because I was reading actually about Uruguay and this cannabis industry, like after a week I started speaking, and though it's a very it's a niche market, but I think the way how they adopted and how they actually created a regulatory framework, that's definitely, it's inspiring for many regulatory regimes around the world. So definitely I think that expertise that you guys have developed over that market can be definitely brought into other market, and you can help your portfolio companies. Now, coming to your
Yeah.
portfolio companies in that regard, what stages of the companies that you are looking for? Are you looking to invest in the seed stage, pre-seed, Series A, and what is the valuation kind of comfortability that you guys are looking to invest in? If you can
Yeah.
shed some light on that.
No, definitely. There's a full range. So, with smaller companies, seed and startup stages, we tend to come in as a sweat equity partner, where we can come in as their legal, accounting, or marketing team, help them build out pieces that they're missing and connect them to the rest of the ecosystem. When it comes to investing directly, we look for companies that are already profitable and that are looking to scale in a specific way, whether that's by bringing in new technology, opening up a new distribution channel and building out inventory, or something that's already proven. We really try to reserve our capital for proven next steps for these companies, and then focus on the sweat equity side for other groups that are looking to get to that stage and aren't ready yet.
So when you
But it's really, go ahead.
no, please do.
I was just going to say, but really the focus is expanding the portfolio in ways we haven't touched yet. So we have 6 countries focused so far. So we're focused on expanding to new countries that are going to open up new avenues on the distribution side and on the product side to bring back in. So we're talking to companies in Australia and a few other markets right now that have just legalized within the past few years, so that we can tap into those markets and work with someone on the ground. A lot of companies where they kind of go wrong in cannabis is by trying to do everything themselves, build out this behemoth within a few years, and then overextending because they didn't actually understand the market they were going into. So we've kind of, taken that backwards where we say, let's find the best partner within each market, partner up with them directly, get equity in their company, give them some equity in our company, and just align our incentives financially so that we can work together and actually scale up. So that's really our focus, is filling in our gaps and expanding into new markets, and then bringing in new technology, brands, and products that can add value to the rest of the portfolio.
So when you just mentioned about sweat equity, do you mean like when you're investing into those portfolio companies, you not only give cash, but you also contribute in kind?
Yeah, so for a lot of them, we contribute in kind with legal services or marketing services. So that was really how the portfolio started. We would basically take, 10 to 20% of a number of different companies by being their legal team, getting all of their licensing done for them, getting them through the regulatory systems, and helping them get set up on that side. So that was really where our company was born from. So we still definitely have that arm. But as we go through security token launches and have more capital, we're looking to strategically deploy into many of those companies that we've already been working with that are ready for that next step, and then some new partners that are really going to add strategic value.
Perfect. No, I think like it's quite interesting how you guys are doing all the stuffs, and also like the element which I think for the lot like for audience can be interesting here. This company actually started in Uruguay, which is actually globally, I would say, is one of the very core jurisdiction which has adopted the cannabis regulatory regime in a much more diverse way, or I would say 360-degree way in that sense. And they started from there, and yeah, like I think this is a perfect macro environment where you can also get a good valuation, right, from various early stage companies. Because if I see the public listed cannabis company stocks, they're falling quite down, and that means startups you can actually get much better multiples at the moment from an investment perspective, and that's definitely can be a good I would say time frame for you guys to raise the capital and deploy some of that capital in the market.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, cannabis is really kind of in a downswell of the standard cycle. So it's a really good time to be deploying capital, coming in heavy, and building out a portfolio, because we know cannabis isn't going anywhere. It's an industry with over 2 billion customers in the world that has new markets opening every day. So there's money to be made. It's about being in the strategic places, making sure we don't overextend in the wrong time, and then just being smart about our next steps to move with the right partners. So yeah, no, I completely agree. It's the perfect time to be where we are, and it's a good thing we weren't here a few years earlier. Honestly, it would have been a hard downturn for us. So this is really strong strategic timing for us to be launching and ramping up.
Perfect. Okay, so let's head on to the next part of the conversation. It's about your Global Cannabis Holding security token. So I think this is kind of very interesting conversation because of also myself running STOKR. I'm involved in the security token industry for quite some years, and how you guys have structured the offering makes quite sense and also quite
Thanks.
interesting. So for the audience, maybe David, if you can give a high level understanding about is what the Global Cannabis Holding token is about, and what kind of rights investors get by participating into that token.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really fun part for us, is where we didn't want to just be another company offering equity to the traditional markets. We wanted to offer an extra level of transparency, liquidity, and just options for our investors. So that was really why we looked at the security token option, and finally went with STOKR. We're really focused on compliance and doing things correctly. So each of these tokens represents one share in our company. So it's an equity certificate. Basically, it's a debt vehicle. So every token represents one share in our company, and those shares represent ownership in these 38 portfolio companies. So really all of the value is driven by equity in each of these companies, compared to a traditional token that's based on art or something like that. Now, this is driven by true property value, company value, revenue, and growth from there. So where we're going to be using these funds and deploying is to expand this portfolio, bring in new holdings, and build in more companies that are then going to be distributing profit. So the long-term goal of this vehicle is to distribute profit down to the investors. And that comes from our portfolio companies. As they distribute dividends up to the parent company, we distribute profit down to all of the investors. And the reason that it says profit share 35% on the site is because basically 100% of the ownership is split between founders and partners and the new investors that come in. So the 35% represents all of the new investors that are coming in. Founders are still there as well on the profit share side, so it's an equal split. Everyone has the same representation. Tokens mean the same thing across the board. But that's just kind of where that 35% came from. It's where the non-founder holdings are held. Another very important piece of the founder holdings is just because our team is so committed to the long-term vision and the long-term goals of what we're working on, we set up a lockup lock-up period. So all of the founder tokens are locked up for 2 years, and then can only be released 10% of each person's token per year. So we're locked in for 10 years at least, and most of us aren't even planning. This is our retirement. We want to be here for the full time because we see the cannabis industry being a cornerstone of global industry, and we want to be the backbone of that industry as it grows.
No, I think you gave a lot of information in one question. I think this is a very useful information for the prospective investors who are considering into GCH. Now, like to highlight one element, I think you are planning to raise 1.75 million in
Yep.
US dollar by issuing 5,000 GCH tokens priced at $350 each token. Now, where you're planning to deploy this capital, if you, let's say, you raise 1.75 million fully at the
Yeah.
moment?
So it's going to be going into 3 different places. The primary one is deploying into some of our strategic portfolio companies that are ready for that next step. This will be happening over the next 12 months. We're going to have an application process from all of our portfolio companies where they propose what they'd like us to invest in, how we can specifically help them grow in their next step, and then deploying part of it into that. A lot of it's going to be going out to building out our core team, specifically bringing on 1 or 2 more legal counsels to expand our sweat equity side. There's more and more countries coming online, so we'd like to bring in counsels in some other strategic regions to help bring in new companies and earn sweat equity through our traditional model. And then the last piece is going to be investing in new companies, specifically targeting markets like Australia, Portugal, and a few more where we can focus on distribution partners that specifically add value directly to our active portfolio already. So yeah, sweat equity partners, distribution channels, and already active portfolio companies.
So right now you have over 38 portfolio companies, right? With this new capital infusion, how big the number you're expecting from this 38 to increase?
So yeah, we should be expanding to about 50 companies by the end of the year. A lot of those are going to be coming through equity swaps. The others are going to be coming through strategic investments. We already have 1 company in Australia that's looking to join within the next few weeks. We have a few more brands from the United States that are looking to join for the next few weeks as well. So yeah, we should be right around 50 companies by the end of the year, and hopefully by 9 or 10 countries at that point as well.
Perfect. And now your valuation, at what valuation you're currently releasing this token into the market?
Yeah, so it's basically a 36 million valuation, and that's just based on the underlying value of the portfolio. To give some more background on kind of our holdings and how direct ownership works in the portfolio, I'll just give a few examples. So Pukmed, that Brazilian company I mentioned earlier, we own 4% of their entire group. So they've got a public group with 3 underlying holdings. So we've been part of that since the start and helping them grow out. So we have 4% of that large company. The largest company in the portfolio is called Global Cannabis Production. Basically, the Uruguayan government has awarded our team, along with some strategic partners, we own 50% of this project. They've awarded us 6 square kilometers with an unlimited license to produce and export cannabis. So we're building out a campus to be the low-cost leader in the market. I'm bringing in strategic partners like Big Oil Co., who's the largest extractor in California, and a number of other brands to be their production hub for the global expansion. So that's a very large project, 6 square kilometers. It's one of the largest cannabis projects in the world, and we have 50% ownership of that project. So yeah, there's a large variance when it comes to how much equity we have and how much involvement we have in each project. But that's kind of the largest, and then it goes down to groups like Pop and Barkley, which is the #1 tinctures and topical brand in California. So we have a small holding in them through a partnership with their CEO Adam Grossman. But yeah, it varies greatly. But if you ask me to actually value our portfolio right now, I'd call it about 50 to 60 billion valuation. But we wanted to make this very achievable and sell out quickly, so that's kind of where we came in with that 36 launch price. So we really want this to move fast and then move up as we continue to build out that base portfolio value. We're very big on not wanting our token value to get ahead of what our portfolio is actually worth. That arbitrage can be really dangerous. So we're really focused on driving value to the portfolio and then having it just be reflected later in the tokens.
No, I think, like, to be honest, the valuation at the moment, the market is changing, but that's actually the question is, if you can showcase that, okay, you're providing the right value to the investors, I think why not? And still the market is awarding good investment opportunities. So definitely, I think there's a scope in that sense, right? One question, I think this is like, as I know, GCH, you have a Luxembourg entity that is issuing the digital securities, and you have an Uruguayan entity that actually holds the portfolio companies, and you have a relationship between these 2 entities. Now, as you have already established a Luxembourg entity, and you are kind of now an European entity in that sense. And you're also looking into the European market, as you mentioned, expansion. And in Europe right now, the lot of, I would say not in Europe, globally in that sense, sustainability is becoming a very key topic. And when I say sustainability, it's not about fake sustainability, just buying some carbon credits and just greenwashing, right? Some real sustainability where from the ground level it's kind of end to end 100% you can trace and all these elements. So do you have any focus on GCH and sustainability, and if you have, how do you measure that, or how do you kind of and
Yeah.
like enforce those kind of requirements inside your portfolio company?
No, it's a great question. I'll say we don't enforce it. We don't put specific standards onto our portfolio companies. We do look for that in who we're working with. A good example of how we like to work within that space is Global Cannabis Production, that large campus project I was mentioning. So one of the first things we closed when we built out that project was a 100-acre solar energy farm. So 100% of the energy that's going to be used in that project is solar energy, 100% renewable from the ground up. And that's really core to not only our company, but to Uruguay as a country. We come from Uruguay. It's really our home. And they're number 2 in the world when it comes to renewable energy. So they actually produce about 180% of the energy they use as a country renewably. They're second in the world to Denmark for that. So it's really kind of not only core to our company, but core to our country and where we grew up is this focus on renewable energy and sustainability. So I'll say we haven't put any standards strictly into this point. I'm very open to it. I'm actually going to be looking into that now that you bring it up on how we can make that more of a piece that we focus on and reinforce within our portfolio companies. But I'll say it's something we do naturally just because it's the best way to operate, in my opinion.
Coming back to your security token again and the token economics and the tokens functionality, I see that you have actually projected by 2026 to have over 106 companies in your portfolio, right? And also you're expecting a valuation of over, I think, 100 million plus in next few years. So how do you see, because right now you have 36 million to 100 million, there is around 70 billion growth you have to add up. So which areas that you think you can actually achieve the significant increase in valuation, and what kind of verticals then in that case you would like to focus on?
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of that is going to come from the collective value of a lot of these companies that are scaling up right now. A lot of them have received their licenses in the last 2 or 3 years. So they're really in that beginning phase where they're just starting to revenue produce, just starting to approach profitability. So in a few years, they'll be much more robust on their company side and on the portfolio side as we invest in new markets, expand out the distribution channels, build up cross-portfolio deals through the ecosystem and sales partnerships. But yeah, basically it's just by driving growth within the companies and then expanding the portfolio, that valuation is going to be moving up naturally.
And do you see already, because I think the last round that you guys did was something around sub 20, and you also closed certain amount in that 36 million, right? Valuation. If you can share maybe something on that, that may be interesting.
Yeah, we kicked off originally last year at about a 25 million valuation, and then have been ramping up since then as we expand the portfolio, as global cannabis production has been coming online. We've already sold some tokens at the new valuation. We even had offers at higher valuations. It's people are pretty comfortable to come in with our company just because it's all built on real assets. It's not just saying, hey, we think we're worth this. We say no. We have the financials behind each of these companies that validate this valuation and prove that we're moving up from here.
And you also from the GCH, and you mentioned you wanted to actually always bring a token that provides financial rights, right? Not just give a utility coin to the investors, which already we are seeing in US what is happening with Gary Gensler, and you can give a better picture on that. So when you're talking to your investors, current investors or new investors about a tokenized investment, what kind of reaction you are seeing at the moment regarding the GCH and the financial rights and all these things?
Yeah. Right now, it's a lot of people going, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Security tokens done correctly and compliantly are really a new thing to the market. Platforms like STOKR are really leading the way when it comes to how to work within these systems, especially within the EU. So it's a lot of, oh, that's really cool. How else can I use that? And then they ask if we could tokenize their project and how else we could work together. It's a really good entry point. It gets people excited and intrigued in what we're doing compared to just being another traditional cannabis company. And then it also has drawn nice attention in. We've gotten Bloomberg articles, Forbes articles, and all of this attention recognition that I don't think would have come if we were just a cannabis portfolio. But being a tokenized group, being willing to push that new edge of regulation and compliance is really exciting. So that's really the reaction we're getting is either people are scared of it or they're excited by it. But we're really looking for people that are looking towards that next phase of the world and are excited by where things are moving.
No, I think like when I was speaking to you and Rodrigo and Andreas from your team in that regard, and it's like it also stuck to me that you guys are really committed to issue digital securities, and we put whatever efforts we can do from our side to bring it to this stage. And also like on STOKR, we support Liquid Network, which is a sidechain of Bitcoin for issuance of
Yep.
digital securities. And Bitcoin, I think ethos goes quite a lot with this entire open market ethos in certain ways. And I think cannabis also fits into that principle of yeah, it's an open market principle if the human is. And I think to a certain extent, there are a lot of cannabis lobby, like for a long time the liquor lobby has suppressed the cannabis lobbies to a certain extent in most of the jurisdiction, but that's a naturally occurring product. And definitely I think as to a certain extent, definitely medical use of cannabis is there, but for recreational use, what we have seen in the places like Netherlands, other, it can be done in a very controlled way that actually helps the society also. So that's definitely from that perspective, though I know it's very hard these days also, even in Europe they're talking about regulation to just get a simple banking account for a cannabis industry. I think it's hard. Maybe you can share these challenges over there, because that's the reason on STOKR we could not open up the Euro gateway for the like the GCH project. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's the banking system is still hard for cannabis, but it's getting closer to moving online every day. A lot of it comes down to U.S. federal illegality because cannabis is still illegal in the U.S. and a lot of these larger bank systems all back up to U.S. parent companies. There's just not really a strong regulatory option when it comes to moving into it. But we're finally seeing some of these larger banks push forward and go with it. It's really in the last 2 years that people have been actually opening up traditional bank accounts and being able to use these traditional systems. We can now send wires and do a lot of these things much more transparently than we could a few years ago. So I'll say it's still a struggle, but it's changing very quickly. And the people that move first and are ahead of that first wave are really going to benefit long term as things finally open up. I mean, there's really no market in the world right now other than a few pieces of tech that are growing as fast as cannabis. It's something that already has well over 1 billion active customers across the world, but it's only legal for a small number of those. So as new markets come online, it's rare to have this much pre-built demand built into a place. So that's really why I see so much opportunity. Is there's going to be some struggles, there's going to be some competition, but long-term cannabis is going to grow and be one of the large markets across the world. And I'd say that's undeniable no matter who you talk to.
No, I think here the role of stable coins like Tether or currencies like Bitcoin in that sense really makes sense, because that provides
Yeah.
an opportunity for companies like GCH to raise capital without having to say, hey, my banks doesn't support, and without capital, no business can develop, right? Capital
Yep.
formation and capital accumulation is the primary driving factor for any entrepreneurship or any business activities to start.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is I think the core element of I think the crypto in that sense, the stable coin
Yeah.
element and the principle of Bitcoin, I think really is beneficial, because imagine 10 years back this wouldn't have been possible. Without bank
Yeah.
accounts, you would have asked people, hey, send me some paper currencies via parcel or money order, or there is no other option. That's I think definitely has changed over the years, and thanks to Bitcoin and that fundamental shift in the decentralized technology and what we are seeing today.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really fun time with things like Liquid coming out. Liquid has really built a lot of strength over the past, recent times, and Bitcoin Layer 2 is coming in as kind of another option to Ethereum and a lot of these other traditional DeFi and token chains. So it's really cool that we can now actually work with the parent chain and still have the same access to do tokenization and these larger launches, but still have it all be backed up to Bitcoin. So it's a really exciting time both in cannabis and crypto for where things are going and where things have really come over the last couple of years.
And I think, to be honest, like Latin market or Latin American market in that sense are the pioneers, in my opinion. I had a very interesting conversation recently with um, one person from Bitfinex Securities, Jesse. He's chief of operations there, and he was quite bullish about Latin American market, about the growth in that market and adoption of new technologies. And I think I totally agree with him, because if you see El Salvador as a government issuing and discussing about issuing a securities on liquid, now the GCH coming and issuing a company, I would say preferential equity instrument or a kind of hybrid debt instrument on liquid. That makes sense. I think, to be honest, that actually shows that Latin American market definitely access to capital is a little bit difficult because the
Yeah.
banking system is not as, I would say, developed as a banking system in Europe. But that actually provides a very good opportunity for those market to be pioneer in this new technology and adopt the technology in its full scope. So this is, I
I
think,
couldn't agree
definitely for
more.
me, it's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, especially with just how much education and growth is happening in Latin America right now. I mean, there's so many hidden gems down there. Uruguay, for example, like nobody knows this, but it's got the third most software engineers per capita of any country in the world. It's just an incredibly tech savvy and well versed community that's really looking for things like this that they can be a part of and that they can use for their companies as well. This goes beyond just cannabis. This vehicle and this opportunity is something that is really scalable and is going to be seen more and more as the world opens up to securities and tokenization overall.
Perfect. No, I think it's a lot of things that align, and that's actually makes us quite happy to support the entire GCH team. And we could not, bring everybody from the GCH team in this chat, but the energy, I think, like whenever we have calls, usually on the weekly calls, I can feel the energy that the team has. So I think thanks also and kudos to all you guys. What you guys have created, it's a fantastic, I would say, business, and it's an entrepreneurial kind of launch pad, I can say, in that sense, right? What GCH is planning to create in the cannabis segment. Now, coming to this element of the entrepreneurial launchpad, and this is actually the idea that came in when I was talking to you guys, and more I learned about the business. So, how you guys actually also, I would say, supporting or encouraging entrepreneurs to come into cannabis? Do you have some, some programs, or are you creating something at the moment, or you are already participating in something like that?
Yeah. No, we're very core on that. So we love finding just incredible entrepreneurs and then helping enable their dreams. A lot of people want to get into cannabis, but they don't actually understand the market, how to get into the systems. A good example of this is Vusler, one of our portfolio companies. So the CEO is just a really smart engineer from Uruguay that was building a number of different groups. And then basically he got lunch with our CEO, Andres Israel. And basically they were talking about how people don't have distribution channels. There's no real Amazon Prime of cannabis. So he takes that and he goes, perfect, I'm going to build it. And then he worked with our legal team, our accounting team, our marketing team, and then his engineering skills to build out this entire distribution channel for cannabis. They can now do direct to consumer. And they're already onboarding products in Uruguay to distribute across Uruguay. They're working on setting up in Chile and Argentina as well. So it's just a good example of where we just saw a really smart guy that was in need of a project idea and helped enable him to build something that not only helped him build a great business, but brought great value to the rest of the portfolio as well.
And how big is your team right now? Because you're doing number of things in number of places. So I don't think it's 2 people or 3 people, right? So how big is the
Yeah,
team right now?
So we have 8 full-time people, 7 of which are based in Uruguay, and then I travel about 25 days a month, meeting with different investors and looking for new portfolio companies and countries. And then we have about 15 different advisors who all help with different strategic pieces. We got a pretty incredible team. It all started with Andy Israel. So his last company was Guru Cargo. It was basically Expedia for shipping containers, international logistics platform. So he did very well with that for years, and then sold it off, and then was looking for his next adventure. And he met Rodrigo Ray. So Rodrigo Ray is our chief legal officer, top cannabis lawyer in the country. He was one of the first people getting licenses, been working on it for about 10 years now. Before that, I mean, he's been the head of legal for the president of Argentina, and just is incredibly well connected and well versed in legal in not only Uruguay, but LATAM overall. So they started this together with that sweat equity platform, saying, hey, let's find all of these companies that are looking for licensing, get them set up, give them the support they need, and come in as a partner. And then as they were expanding, basically Andy discovered that there's this entire market growing and popping up across the world that needs the same type of support. So that was what led into the cross-country platform. And then basically we were talking about different ways to raise capital and to bring in value. And that was really where the security tokenization came in. We wanted to add transparency, add liquidity, and give options to make it accessible for investors around the world. So this was kind of where that idea came from, and how we could do something new and bring tokenization in a way that's real. There's so many token projects that are based on fluff. We want to do it based on assets, based on real things that we're building and that we can be a part of from the ground up. So that was really where it started and how we kind of got to where we're growing from today. And it was built out of Uruguay and now a global adventure.
No, I think it's fascinating. Like this is actually I also get inspired by the vision, which starts very small at a very core nucleus level, and then it expands to a certain way. And there's a lot of organic elements, and I really appreciate it. And I speak to Andreas and you, and also Rodrigo, night time to time, and also Joaquin in those sense. So I think I can definitely see where it's coming from and where it's going. But I think, like
Thanks.
David, I think as we're coming to the end of our conversation, and I always ask every entrepreneurs who are kind raising on STOKR is, what do you see your business in next 5 years first, and where do you see your business in next 10 years? That will be fascinating to hear what you're thinking in that regard.
Yeah. So in the next 5 years, really focused on being the platform out of Uruguay, building distribution channels across the world, and being secure, having this entire distribution channel built out, have over 100 portfolio companies in at least 15 countries, and be the first people into every country as they come online. Be that first foot on the ground, work with partners in country, and develop this chain so it truly becomes the global ecosystem. And 10 years out, I'd like for us to be the standard vehicle when it comes to private equity and family offices that want to invest in cannabis. I want to develop such a great, diverse portfolio that when people look to invest in cannabis, they don't look for a company, they look to GCH and just see that as a representation of the entire industry. So yeah, 5 years out, I want to have built an incredible distribution channel, have it all be based out of Uruguay and be supplying the entire world. 10 years out, be that diversified investment vehicle that represents the entire industry and is the new global standard for cannabis investment.
Perfect. That's quite, I would say, encouraging, and also like it's fascinating to hear where you're seeing. And I think you guys also internally, when I was discussing, you guys also focus a lot on quality and not just quantity of the project. So that's also a fantastic approach that you guys have taken. So congratulations to all of you, and again, congratulations for the launch of the STO. And for the audience, if you have any further questions, please feel free to write in the comment section, or feel free to write an email to STOKR. We will forward to the team, or register your interest if you want to learn more about the offering. And any links that David mentioned, any portfolio companies that David mentioned, you will find in the description box. You can just hit that link over there and just check this profile. Thanks, David, once again for joining us in the AMS session. Hope to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure. Really appreciate everything you're doing, Arnab. STOKR is a really incredible platform, so we're very grateful to be working with you guys, and excited to see where this road takes us over the coming years.
Thank you very much, and we are quite humbled, and actually thank you from the entire team of STOKR. So thanks for being patient with the entire journey of when we met and we signed a contract and this offering launch. Hopefully we can do some interesting stuff and amazing stuff, and we can also support in your journey and your vision. So thank you, and thanks also for the listeners for listening to the episode, and see you and have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. We're just getting started. Have a great day.